Hey now, you're tuned into the Wake Up and Win podcast, and I am your host, DeVon Pouncey. I am here at the Living the Dream Studios in the beautiful city of Portland, Oregon. And today we got a very, very special guest. You may have seen him in the movie Three Strikes. You may have seen him in the movie Soul Plane. You may have even seen him in the Eve Show. Brian Hooks, the legendary Brian Hooks, joining us here, man. Thanks for finally being able to connect with me, man. And it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yay, man. It's good to be here. Boss. Me too. I'm fine. Glad schedule's been crazy, but I'm glad we finally connected, man.
Absolutely. And we'll definitely get into your crazy schedule and some of the stuff that you got going on today. But to sort of lay the foundation for this conversation, I want to talk about what it is that you do in the independent comedy and film and acting scene, because oftentimes when we think about independence and entertainment, we attribute it to that of the music industry, where you have artists that are anti-label or aren't signed to labels, or they have these quote unquote partnerships. And I say that with air quotes because I know that's sort of a buzzword that gets thrown around loosely. So in your case, being somebody that's been independent for a very long time in the entertainment industry, what does it mean for you with the work that you do to be independent?
I mean, I think it's everything, and I think it's the new normal, in my opinion, because it allows you to sort of control your own destiny. And, you know, the way I sort of dove into independence was sort of accidentally on purpose. A buddy and I, we were studying at Cal State University, Northridge. I was a math major going to school to teach, and he was in the film program there. And so it was on the heels of Fat Beach, which had been released theatrically, did okay, went to DVD, and went crazy and broke all kind of records. And so he approached me to make this film. He was a little short on funds. He had like 10 grand, needed like 3 more. So I was like, okay. So we made this film for $13,000. When we finished the film, it was absolutely horrible. And I mean horrible. But yeah, it was 90 minutes, and it was funny. And so Xenon Entertainment, which is this mid-level distributor, picked the film up. And long story short, that film we made for $13,000 went on to make $800,000.
Damn.
Yes. And from there, we had found a little niche to where we can make these modest budget films and sort of control our own destiny and not be at the mercy of a studio or executive or whoever it may be telling us, you're good enough. Your films are good enough. And what I always say to folks is the money that we made was amazing on that. However, I think the bigger lesson was the idea that we stepped out on faith. We took a shot on ourselves. We pushed out of the planning phase and just went out to make it happen. Because again, we didn't make a great product, right? We just made a product. And we took that first step and we opened up a world foundation of independent filmmaking, and it's been the foundation for everything that I do. And now, X years later, you know, all those things I was learning because I thought was a burden because I was having to make films with 2 hands tied behind my back, now is a blessing because we entered this pandemic. And while most entertainers, actors are sort of waiting for you know, the industry to open back up and at the mercy of them saying, okay, we're going to go now, and then things trickling out and it's not as much work. They're just sitting, waiting to be called, when I have all the tools to be able to make a film on my own, by myself, however, whenever, with whoever. And so it's a blessing to be able to do that. And we were able to do just that and navigate and safely go out and execute a film in the middle of the pandemic. And so that's what independence allows you. It allows you to control your own destiny. And in this business of acting and filmmaking and entertainment, that's just so important nowadays because, you know, as you see, you know, a lot of the celebrities, they just recycle and use the same people over and over and over.
Right.
So by being independent and knowing how to make a film and knowing how to put yourself out there and knowing how to tap into your own talent and worth is everything. That's what I've been able to do, and that's what independence is to me. And now we're sitting here in the most independent time ever. where it's not just something that a few people are doing on the side, but it's something that's highly respected and everybody ideally wants to push to and sort of control, their own destiny. And there's so many different outlets looking for content now. Independence is sort of king.
Absolutely. Now, I also want to just talk about your history in Hollywood. And being a podcaster, I got to do my research. I got to see what Brian Hooks has been out here talking about on other platforms as well. Mm-hmm. So I certainly want to credit the Comedy Hype show that you were on fairly recently. And you sort of just talked about Hollywood and sort of the being inside of the belly of the beast that is Hollywood, and how things go on, that sometimes may be immoral or may go against your values. And so I think that sort of has made it easier for you to lean into this independent comedy space. But I do want to ask a follow-up question to what it was that they asked you about that. And that is there any examples that you've dealt with or faced head on, and you don't have to say any names or anything, but to where it made you feel as if you made the right decision by going independent based on a certain experience that you had in Hollywood?
I think for me, there's really been no huge it moment, but as I look around again at my peers, and I see some of them who, you grew up watching people and you like what they doing now. And, they're just sort of starving, waiting to be fed by this industry, right? And so with me, again, everything that I was learning over those years, I may not have had, knew exactly where I was going. Yeah. But as I look back with all those tools I've acquired, I'm like, oh, wow, that has set me up to never have to be at the mercy of these decision makers. And so the idea that I see some of my peers sort of sitting and waiting and hungry and thirsty lets me know that, wow, I'm on the right path doing the right thing. And in other moments, I know a lot of, a lot of peers as well are just sort of, they've sort of played themselves in the sense that they sort of swap their self to gain access, right? Yeah. So if they don't have the ability to go out and make independent films or create projects or create work for themselves, then they're more apt to sort of, be involved in whatever they need to be involved in to fit in so they can get in, right? So I've never, and I'll say, that's just who I am, man. So it wasn't even a decision to okay, I'm gonna make sure I don't do X, Y, and Z. It's just something in me, you know what I mean? And I'm thankful and I feel blessed that it was just never an option to go into these different rooms, different parties, different offices, and pretend to be someone I'm not even if it's just for 5 minutes. Now, that don't mean I'm running around being an asshole, by any means, but I'm a humble person. I'm thankful. I know that I'm blessed for everything that I'm given. And so when the conversation, goes left or the actions go right, then, I know it's like, okay, this is not the space for me. Right. So if it's a group of people or a party happening at a certain place and, I know they do, all kind of wild things, then, I'm not going there. Absolutely. Right? Because what am I going to do there? Right. Right. And I don't do this, I don't do that. And, it's just not for me. So I've always made the decisions. And I think people never really even approached me with the nonsense because they understood by, the way I stand, the way I speak, the things I do, that he not gonna go for the BS. So if we got, 10 people in this room, doing X, Y, and Z, we can't have dude here because he's just gonna be watching us.
Right. He gonna be watching it called the circus.
Right, and he's likely to go tell everybody because he ain't doing it, Right. The rest of us is doing it, so mom's the word,
Right.
And again, like I said before, you see it in a lot of people's actions and eyes. If some people say, if you see someone who's on top, and they have all this access, everything you so-called dream of, the studios love you, the big films, the so on and so forth, and you still in your gut, can't find happiness. And if you still leaning into that alcohol, you still leaning into that drugs, if you can't find balance,
right,
when you've been blessed with, the stability of being, the it guy or the it gal in Hollywood, then, you've likely made some moral sacrifices to get there, and that sits with you. Sits with you.
Absolutely. Like doing the right thing doesn't always feel good, though. So in you doing the right thing here morally, and I agree with everything that you just said, has there ever been a time, though, where you felt like maybe you were being unapproachable or too unapproachable, or have you always just kind of stood firm in this thing and just really knew your mission, in regards to being in this industry and having certain limits that you wouldn't go past?
Yeah, I think absolutely, you know what I mean? Because it is going to come off to some people as unapproachable or, and things like that. But to say this again, it was never something that I went out to a party or event and said, okay, I'm standing tall in what I believe. You're talking to a dude who I don't drink. I don't drink or smoke. I've never been drunk ever in my life. I've never drank a glass of beer, a glass of wine. I don't do alcohol. So it's just and that's not to say, oh, that's great, that's what you do, but that's just how I'm built. You know what I mean? Like, some people say they don't drink, but they have a drink here. Like, I've never drank, you know what I'm saying? And so that's sort of who I am. So I'm not the guy to really do stuff that I don't do because certain people are around. So it's not a choice to like go in the room like, yeah, I'm gonna be me and that's gonna be, don't pro me with the nothing. Like, it ain't that. It's just, oh yeah, that's B. And I don't step into the room and start running my mouth and so on and so forth. So it could be a little, come off a little standoffish, but it's not that, I'm just, I'm just a,
being you.
And I'm a humble dude. And I'm, although my characters are crazy, which is also confusing, I don't walk into rooms like that. You know what I'm saying? So it could be taken the wrong way at times, but I say all that to say it's not a conscious decision. It was just me being me, you know what I mean? And like, I'm comfortable and know my heart, you know what I mean? If I got $1 and I know there's someone in need, like, you got 50 cents, let's split this and do what we do. And so I know that. So whatever people are thinking for whatever reason, you know what I mean? I knew at the end of the day, it was bogus. They clearly don't know me, and I can't control what people have or haven't heard. So it never really weighed on me. But definitely, again, if you're aggressive and you're in those circles and you shaking and moving and dancing and spinning around, people like that. People like that. But again, I was never compelled to, put on a costume or a mask and go and try to be somebody else, man. Life too hard as it is. This business as difficult as it is. And now I got to pretend to be somebody else sometimes. Like, come on, man. Like, let me just settle into this Brian Hooks and just do that the best I can. And that be that. And where that takes us, I will accept that and be appreciative, but I can't, you know what I mean? I can't get into all the extraness.
Absolutely. Here's my question, right? Because mental health obviously has become a mainstream topic in today's society for all the right reasons, I believe. But in the case of comedy, like you've heard oftentimes just from different comedians and just generally speaking that comedy could sort of be a defense mechanism for people. based on maybe something that it was that they experienced throughout their life, some sort of trauma they may have experienced throughout their life, and they had to kind of make a joke out of everything so that they could kind of steer away from having to face head on that particular trauma. In your case, though, as Brian Hooks, as you already mentioned, you play some crazy roles. You're absolutely hilarious. For you, initially, before comedy and acting became a profession, was it a defense mechanism for you, or just has Brian Hooks always been this funny guy since inception that just knew how to make a room laugh, or just, you know, make something out of anything in regards to just being the funny guy, being the class clown maybe, and just, you know, being able to get laughter out of the people around you?
Yeah, you know, I've been blessed in that sense. And you go into those comedy rooms, man, and it was a shock for me because I didn't start off doing stand-up, although a lot of people think that I did. You know, it's just my comedy acting that was the foundation for everything that I've done. And so when I delve into comedy, it means going into these comedy rooms, working out locally, you know what I mean, testing the jokes, writing, and you know, and fine-tuning your craft. And it's a lot of darkness with these comics, man. And a lot of them tend to be very, you know, sad, very lonely, very bitter, and they have these things happening and that they're trying to feel. This industry attracts a very unstable personality, you know, and if you have these vices that they feel like, okay, once I make it, then I'm gonna feel better, but it doesn't work like that. It just magnifies who you are. It magnifies your vices as well. So if you do a little drugs before you make it, you're gonna do a whole lot of drugs once you do make it. Wow. You do a little drinking before you make it, you're gonna do a lot of drinking, you know what I mean? And so on and so on. It's not going to fix the problem. And so a lot of these folks don't realize that, and they're chasing thinking this is gonna feel something, and it's not. And for me, again, it was never that. And that's why I'm so thankful for my parents, you know what I mean? Because we grew up, I don't know if we were middle class or lower middle class, but if you would have asked me and my siblings when we were young, you'd be like, oh no, we rich. You know what I'm saying? Because my parents always, you know, figured out a way to make sure we never needed anything. And they also, at every moment that they could, make sure we had some of the things we wanted. And so my energy just comes from being a natural fool.
Right.
You know? So I grew up in Bakersfield, California, and you know, entertainment, there wasn't really any, you know, room or opportunity. So my entertaining was limited to the, you know, the school talent shows, the classroom, you know, antics, and you know, showing out in church and getting popped in the back of the head. So absolutely. So you know what I mean. So them church pews was my stage. You know that. You know what I'm saying. You know, and so I just, once I was able to come down here and go to Cal State Northridge after high school, I found myself in the epicenter of entertainment. And you know, I was young, and you know, and I didn't have a clue what the business was or what it could be. I just knew it was something that was exciting and cool. And outside of my math studies, I'm gonna try to get my feet wet and see what happens. You know, and that's sort of been how I came to here. It was something that I always sort of thought would be cool and longed for, but I didn't know, I should say, it was possible until, you know, I came down for college at Cal State Northridge, and then it was just sort of all around me, man. And that's when I dove in and never looked back.
Absolutely. As we mentioned already, you've got a long history of being a part of all types of different platforms that many of us are familiar with. So this is sort of a twofold question here. Who is the most impressive person in this industry that you feel like you've ever worked with? And also, following up on that, what was the funnest or your favorite cast, your favorite overall cast to be a part of?
Right. Man, who was the best time that I ever worked with? I think I've been lucky to be a part of some cool groups,
Yeah.
in the work that I've done, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you do get crazy folks, and I've been lucky to sort of dodge that, man. But I would have to say, um, oh man, that's High School High, Mekhi Phifer, Melinda, Tia Carrera, John Lovitz.
Yeah.
It was such a good time. And I think maybe it was because I was so young and it was so new. And I think, at the time, that was the largest budgeted film that I did. And it was so foreign to me to be on this set with all this access, with all these cool people. And so we were like 3 months as a family making this big studio film. I had this character that I just was able to let loose on. And that was just a really, really amazing time. And so I think all those people on there I took from and thought were super duper amazing. But as far as folks that I also mentioned, because one of the persons that I'm really moved by, I would say, is Jamie Foxx, in the sense of what he's been able to do.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't know, like, Jamie played Ray, like, and
he did.
killed it,
Shredded
right?
it.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you started listening to Ray Charles music for a year after that. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? But on the other end, Jamie did Booty Call, right? so
yes,
you know what I
did.
mean? And far as his career, he's never been able to be put in a box, and he's been respected on both ends, and he's a stand-up comic. So, as much as, because I'm a fan as well, you know what I mean? I'm not like, oh yeah, man, who's your favorite thing? I'm my favorite thing. Like, it ain't that, like,
you're a fan of the sport.
Right. So, you know what I'm saying? And so with Jamie, man, people don't realize, he said a sitcom, you know what I mean? He's done stand-up, he's done amazing. He's done the most dramatic films. He's done the most hood films and Booty Call. And then, he's part of the Spider-Mans or whatever, the comics. And so most people don't get to do that, right? Like, you say, okay, you do drama. Okay, you do comedy. Okay, you do TV. But not Jamie, man. They haven't been able to put him in the box. So not somebody I've worked with or somebody I have, a personal relationship with, other than we see each other in passing. But he's been able to, stretch his wings and do some amazing things. But as far as the cast and project, I would say, Eve's show, we were like a family, man.
Yeah.
And for 3 years, like, what was it, 66, 70 episodes.
That's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, we just had the most amazing time. And with most casts like that, you're just going to get personalities to clash. Actors are usually unstable folks, but not us, man. We would work all day, then hang out all night, and then go to work back early in the morning. Like, it was such a great time. It was just like, we were just like best friends, and we made great content, and we just had fun, man. So that was probably, one of the greatest experiences as a cast that I've had.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the recent Dave Chappelle clip that he posted for a special that he has coming out, where he discussed him being able to get his licensing back for the Chappelle show. And a lot of that had to do with, the community and the people coming out and boycotting against Netflix when they had started airing the Chappelle show via Netflix. And then it sort of got me to thinking about, the special that he did over the summer, 846, where he was talking about the entire George Floyd murder, by the hands of the police officers. And then from there, I just kind of started to think about the socio-cultural impact that Dave Chappelle has had and still is having by way of how he's shaping and shifting how business is operated, obviously, with what it was he was able to do with the Chappelle Show, but also being able to acknowledge and articulate himself in a way that reaches so many different people on issues such as that of George Floyd's passing away. Now, to sort of bring that socio-cultural element to what it is that Brian Hooks is doing, you're currently rocking the Left of Bang entertainment gear right now. Talk to us about what Left of Bang entertainment is for those that aren't familiar, and sort of the socio-cultural impact that you intend for Left of Bang entertainment to have.
Yeah, and so what happened was a couple of years ago, you know, with everything that I've done, it was cool, but it was just something, and I can explain it now, but at the time I didn't know, it was something missing. And it came down to, you know, what's my legacy? Like, what am I doing? How or am I giving back? And, you know, and what can I do? You know, what do I want to leave? And, you know, is the work that I'm doing pushing anyone forward, you know? And I was reading a book, Steve Jobs, and he was trying to convince, I forget the guy, but he was the head of PepsiCo at the time. And he was trying to convince him to come and work with him over at Apple, you know what I mean? And he continuously tried to get this guy and convince him to come and work with him, but he kept telling Steve no. You know, it just took, you know, Coca-Cola to #1 the year before. He was the man. And he tried and tried and tried unsuccessfully until one day he asked him a game-changing question that got him to say yes. And this question moved me extremely. Yeah. And when he said to the guy to get him to come and work with him, he said, do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? And I had to look myself in the mirror and ask myself that same question. Am I selling sugar water, or am I changing the world? And I said, well, I'm making a whole bunch of Kool-Aid, right? Yeah. I'm making a whole bunch of Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment I had to seek out something more, right? And so on my journey, I had some credible mentors, George Antone, Willie Hooks, who really helped me to take all these Lego pieces that I acquired and built up over the years and start to construct them into something that made sense. And one of the other things I did was I joined the Santa Monica Rotary. And that's a group, an organization whose motto is service over self, period. Right. Service over self. That's how we move. That's how we analyze the world. And they've done amazing things for years and decades in helping people locally and internationally. And so one day within my Rotary, I was visiting a Rotary, and there was an ex-police chief there as a guest speaker. And he made a comment that really, really put things into focus for me. He said that at the age of 3, they could predict that a child would end up in prison.
Yeah.
So at 3 years old, with certainty, they can predict whether a child will end up in jail or prison.
Incredible.
And when they said that, I'm like, okay, it's I'm waiting for the punchline. It got to be something, you know. That can't be that cut and dry. But that was it. You know, he said what he said, and it was true. And then he went on to give us the reasoning for that. And what he said was, they're able to predict that because of the geographical area that a child is born in, the number of gangs they may have to walk by to get to and from school, and whether their parents have been in jail or prison or not. And so here you are, this child at the age of 3. You don't know what life is. Yeah. You don't possess an ounce of ill will in your body. And because of where you're born, the arc of your life is limited to death or prison. And so I had to ask myself, if I had the ability to save that 3-year-old kid's life, would I, right? Yeah. And so for me, the answer is yes. And that's what Left of Bang is. reaching back and trying to intercept these youth who are born on rocky foundation and born into situations where they're forced to choose between bad and worse, and allowing them another opportunity, right? Another choice other than choosing between bad and worse.
Right.
Because when these kids join these gangs and things like that, it's not like they grow up and that's their, profession of choice. People are these kids are looking for a sense of family and belonging. And that's a human instinct that's necessary for anyone to thrive, wherever you're born at. Yeah. However, that's just a necessity. Right. And so they're going to get that even if it's with the gang. And so we want to make sure that they have other options. So Left to Bang, we're doing our part to extend the olive branch from the inner city to the sets of Hollywood, teaching them, the filmmaking school skills so that they can become, filmmakers if they choose, or fall in love with the aspect of filmmaking, or if nothing else, if they walk away and they was like, yo, that was dope, but filmmaking isn't for me, they at least walk away with the idea, yo, if I can do that, I can do anything. And that's what the program is. It's reaching back and providing these youth an opportunity to get off that path to jail or prison by allowing them to breathe and achieve and exposing them to different things. Because at the end of the day, if they're given a choice to choose between, shooting a gun or shooting a movie, they would obviously choose shooting a movie.
Absolutely. Man, that's super dope. That's a great way to put it. With that, how did the name Left to Bang come out of that mission and that intention of what your entertainment company is all about, and what it is that you want your entertainment company to execute ultimately?
Yeah, Bang represents that action moment in a kid's life where they decide to pick up a gun, commit a violent act, anything that puts them on the wrong side of the law. Yeah. Because then they're often in the hands of the prison system, the judicial system, the inmates, and so on and so forth. So our idea is for us to capture them and intercept them before that bang moment and keep them left of bang. Wow. Keep them from going on the wrong path, but rather keeping them left of bang and not in the nonsense. And so that's where the name Left to Bang come from, because that's our mission, keep them left of bang. And that's where we're at. And so it's been an amazing journey, man. And it has made me, it has turned up everything that I'm doing. It feels so much better. And I think a lot of people don't understand. And I've learned through joining the Rotary that when you decide to give back without expecting anything back, that feeling, like, you can't even explain. You feel like you do some things that make you feel good or thing, but it's nothing like service over self and helping someone in need. That energy and that you get back from doing that, there's no other, gratification or energy like it.
That's real, man. That's real. Because the work that I do, I work with the homeless population, and some of it is through the media sector as well. But even just like yesterday, one of our vendors at our organization, Street Roots, they came by the office to show me that they got their keys. They have been living on the streets for 8 years.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? For 8 years, they have been unhoused. And the feeling that it gave me, man, it felt, man, it was so dope, because I've been working with this person for the last 2.5 to 3 years now. So I know they've been on the streets, and I've heard the different conversations and the different things that they've had to deal with, having to live on the streets where things can be really rigorous, and it has an impact on your mental health, your physical health, and just, all aspects of your life. So to see him come in just to show me his keys, man, it was no greater feeling than that, knowing what he had been through just in the time that I've known him, but knowing that he'd been dealing with being homeless for 3 times the length that I've known him, and I've known him for 3 years, man. So I absolutely get you on that.
Yeah, it's an amazing feeling, huh?
Yeah, great. Super dope feeling. Dope feeling. Sticking to sort of this sociocultural aspect when it comes to comedy, though, we're in divisive times in America right now. Obviously, we know everything that's going on from the last administration bleeding over into this current administration. But to me, the voice of the comedian has always been so important. And I think now it's more important than ever, because usually comedians tend to be more objective than people in most other spaces. Because for the comedian, it's more so about landing the joke. But usually in landing the joke, there's some kind of lesson to be taken from that. Just what are some of your thoughts about the role of the comedian in today's society, or just, you know, in society in the past as well? Because like I said, I think that voice is actually becoming more and more important, and we need to recognize that as a society.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You know, the great comics, they're always saying something.
Yeah.
You know, beneath the laughter and beneath the jokes, as they take you on that journey, whether they up there doing an hour or up there doing, you know, 10, 15 minutes, they usually saying something beneath the jokes. Dave Chappelle, as you mentioned, has been excellent with that. You know, you always get a huge message, and he's, you know, he's always digging deep and saying eye-opening and mind-opening things. And I think that's super duper duper important. And I think it's, you know, the role of every comic, if you've done your history, to be saying something real and be speaking your truth. And I think it resonates when you have a comic up there and he's not talking about anything personal, even if it doesn't have a message. It somehow doesn't land and doesn't connect.
Right.
Or we certainly don't remember him past, you know, seeing him on stage for those few minutes when in whatever club we may have been in. But I just think it's extremely important for comics to have a voice. And, you know, with everything that's going on and the shift that's happening in the world, things have, you know, are under a microscope, and a lot of comics are feeling, you know, limited by the things they can say, and, and worried about the, you know, the lash back or whatever it may be. So it's a really funny time where comics are trying to fill in and find their fitting, and you know, and not offend, but still be able to say what they want to say, because comedy is offensive, right?
Yeah.
Somebody's always, you know, the butt of the joke. And in my opinion, you know, you can't sit there laughing like, oh, he said a joke about, you know, if I'm Black and I'm sitting in a club and he said a Latino joke and I'm laughing like hell, and then he said a fat joke and I'm laughing like hell, then he said a midget joke and I'm laughing like hell, then he said a Black joke and I'm like, hey, what you mean, man? What the hell is, you know, keep laughing. keep laughing, bro. You've been laughing harder than anybody else when I was talking about midgets, fat people, and Mexicans. Now you're laughing. No, keep laughing, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the hypocrisy, man. But the reality is somebody's always the butt of the joke, even if it's themselves. You know, they're up there talking about themselves. So, you know, if it's not for you, you know, do like this with your ears, plug your ears, or leave, don't come.
Yeah.
But let these folks do what they do. And I think, again, you know, a lot of comics, you know, they have real messages, and that's the ones I enjoy most. And you talk about like the Chris Rock and, you know, the Dave Chappelle and those folks, they're always saying something real. D.L. Hewley, like you go see them, you laugh from start to finish, and you walk away smarter than when you walked in. And so
absolutely,
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I got just a few more questions for you here, and I'm enjoying all of this, man. You're giving us gold. You're giving us gold on the podcast, man. You're giving us gold. You've been a comedian for what, 30 years now? Definitely been some decades. A comedian, an actor, just in that entertainment space,
right?
By way of acting, stand up. So you've seen these different eras, from the VHS era to the DVD era to present day. We're in the streaming era. What was your favorite era to be a part of, and why? And sort of connect that to the era we're in today, and why this era is either positive or negative, you know, in your opinion, based on your career, your experiences, and everything it is that you're doing.
I would say the DVD, because I was so, I said so little responsibility, and I was so young and naive, and I was just, I was just enjoying, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
was so little responsibility on my shoulders. So I was really able to dive in to that moment. And that was at a time to where I was breaking new ground and making these straight to DVD films. And they was like, yo, that's the king of DVD. And I had sort of carved out a new path and sort of, set a tone for what would be years to come. So I would have to say that's my most favorite, because that's when I really became me and built a foundation for myself that allowed me to provide, to this day.
Right.
And so, we made Nothing to Lose for $100,000. It went on to make over $4.2 million, and that had never been heard of or done at all. They were so confused by it. But what studios did is they started to copycat that. They was like, dang, yo, like, what is going on? And so what they ultimately figured out is, we could make movies, put them straight to DVD, not have the overhead of the theatrical, millions and millions of dollars, and everything be profit right away.
Right.
And so they start to look into their library of things they own, and it's like, yo, this, movie was good and successful. We don't have any thoughts on making a sequel, but what if we did make a part 2 and just put it straight to DVD? So studios started to do that and make a ton of money. And that's when you started to see, like, yo, when did they do part 2? You know what I mean? I don't remember that, because it didn't go to the theaters and went straight to DVD. And Nothing to Lose set the standard for that. That's the movie that went through the roof, that they was like, yo, and it changed the whole dynamic of the industry. So for me, that would be the ideal time. And then DVD came, and it was the same. I was, locked in. And at that point, loving making my small films, and they were all very lucrative. And then now there was a space, though, from that Blockbuster to Netflix becoming what it's come to, where it was a little murky, and everybody was trying to figure out, okay, how do we monetize off of this? What route? You know what I mean? And now, present day with the digital, it has all sort of come full circle, and it is now for independent person like it was back then, because it was wide open and it was new and it was exciting. When we went straight to DVD, it was like a hack you found in the game. Like, hey man, you go push up 2 times, go left, and put the reset button for 5 minutes. You get unlimited game. It was sort of like a hack that was found. And now today it's back to where you have all these outlets, so it's a dope time to be independent. And so you could really make small films and monetize off them. You can make a living, you know what I mean? If you're serious about it and if you take the steps. And so I'm loving leaning into that now as well, because that suits me. That allows me to continue on and not being at the mercy of any executive, any studio. When they call and they want to work, or if it's a project I want to audition for because I think it's dope, I want to be a part of it, cool. You know what I mean? But if not, I already have the Left to Bang plan lined out for this year and the movies we're going to do.
Absolutely.
So,
that's dope.
You know what I mean?
I got to ask you this, because obviously I live here in Portland, but I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I'm from Vallejo, California. You're a legend for 3 Strikes. I got to ask you about your relationship with the home team, man. E40, talk about it. Talk about the water, B-Hooks.
Yo, hey, I talked to 40 the other day. We FaceTime, man. So we planning to do some cool things soon too. But that's my man. See, I'm born and raised in Bakersfield, and Bakersfield is an extension of the Bay, not LA. Even though we're a little closer, it's more everything trickle down from the Bay. It don't come from, LA. So E40, like, I grew up just banging that, you know what I mean? In the car, in a major way, all that. And so when we did 3 Strikes, that was my favorite. That's my favorite rapper before I knew him, right? Okay. And so when we did 3 Strikes, like, yo, I'm finna meet my favorite rapper. You know what I'm saying? And so when we met, we clicked because, he was a fan of, you know what I mean, the work that I've done. he my favorite rapper, and we just clicked immediately. But not just him, his whole family, man. So
Yeah.
we all of cousins now, man. And it's just, 40, one of the coolest dudes ever, man. He one of the coolest dudes ever, man. And I love him. And that's been one of the highlights of this whole journey, is just being able to meet 40 and then having a friendship, a genuine friendship, to where, you know what I mean, we consider each other family. Has been everything, man. But that's my dude. We're gonna do another something together.
Okay.
Coming up too, man.
Okay, yeah, I'll be on it. I'll be on it because, like I said, I'm from Vallejo, and 40 is certainly a family. He's certainly a family friend, and every time he comes to perform here in Portland, it's cool. And it's not just 40, but he's certainly one of the people from the Bay that I know within the music industry. When they come to Portland, they don't know as many people out here. So I'm always able to get access through them because I'm somebody that's a part of the home team that's in an entirely different region and an entirely different market that can come rock out with them while they come in to do their thing and perform.
That's what's up.
Yeah, the last time he came out here and performed at the Moda Center where the Trailblazers play, we definitely had a few concoctions, and I got to watch it. I got to watch him perform, and he got me and my brother backstage access. Like, that's dope. Always shows mad love. So I had to.
That's dope.
I had to ask about him in that. I got two more questions for you. Okay. Right? The first one, so I cover sports in a major way, but with this podcast, I've always had an intention to intersect sports with politics and intersect sports with culture, because when I'm being an analyst, for example, I'm an analyst at Portland State, a TV analyst over there. So when I'm being an analyst, if you want to see me in analyst mode, go check my game out on Pluto TV when I'm doing my job at Portland State. We're in season right now. I promote it on the podcast all the time. But when I come here, I like to talk about other things that I have interest in, with this podcast. Sports obviously still being one of them, but I'm not here to regurgitate what you might be hearing on ESPN. But for this, I want to introduce a segment because we always ask people about their top 5 and what's your top 5 favorite rappers and what's your top 5 favorite comedian, which is what I'm going to ask you. But in regards to this segment, I want to call this segment the 6-man segment. And you're the first person that I'm doing this with. So basically what I want you to do is give me your top 5 comedians, whether they be stand-up or film and acting comedians. It's totally up to you to decide. And then I want you to give me a 6-man, which basically will be a young and up-and-coming comedian that may not be on some of our radars. I know you work with the youth a lot, so there may be somebody that you see on the up and up that we just haven't got a hold of yet. Or it could be a 6th comedian that just didn't quite squeeze into that short list of 5 comedians, but they're your honorable mention. They're your 6th man when it comes to that list. Give it to me, B Hooks.
Man, I would say old school comics too.
Whatever, old school comics. If we don't know them, educate us.
I would say Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Chris Rock has always been one of my favorites. And I didn't know it'd be that hard. And Gabriella Graces.
Okay.
Fluffy's hilarious. And Fluffy's not my number 5. That's one of my favorite comics. But those 5, and then the 6 man. Oh man.
Like I said, you could go either direction. It could be a young comic that you just got your eye on right now that you feel like has the gift, or it could be somebody that, like I said, just didn't quite squeeze into that 5, but you're a fan of.
Man, it's a lot of that's, man. You don't realize how hard we gotta work.
Yeah, buddy.
Dang, bro. I mean, it's a lot, man. You had to leave, but I would say, Dave Chappelle, man.
Yeah.
Man, but then you got some more. You got Epps, you got Kevin. You got to
Yeah, it's
respect
a lot of
everything
them.
that they've done. You got DLQ, man. So, it's sort of, my five had to take precedence as far as age, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I couldn't. I guess it's just like I love LeBron, but I guess it's the Jordan LeBron debate, and you just have to go with the
With the
older
era.
cat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
With the
yeah,
era that
so,
suits you.
yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough
For
one because it's
sure,
a
for
lot of
sure.
people I love.
It's all good. It's all good. Last question, man. What is it that you're working on right now that we should be looking forward to? And with that, how should we support it, being that you are independent when it comes to a lot of the work it is that you do? Like, how do we support independent filmmaking by way of what it is that Brian Hooks is doing in comparison to sort of the mainstream corporate backing filmmaking that doesn't have quite the independent element that a lot of your work does?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm working on a number of things. I just finished. I'm in post for my movie Adam and Eve. It's a drama. It's a little different than how you used to seeing me, and it's about this couple who fall in love, and they both have skeletons in their past, and those skeletons start to creep up and
Yeah.
prevent them from moving forward and living happily ever after. So, straight drama. Starring myself. I wrote, produced, directed, getting back to doing exactly what I do and why folks know me.
Yeah.
And then with Bentley Evans, who created the Jamie Foxx show and was showrunner on Martin, he and I are doing a sitcom starring myself together. So that'll be happening this year as well. And then we have another film on the slate. And then also my Left to Bang with my youth is a big thing that I'm doing now. And we're currently, we have the film school going to where I'm teaching them the basics of filmmaking one-on-one so that they could take that blueprint and go out and make a film themselves, man. And so I think the way to support is just to represent and solicit the films. You know what I mean? Set aside, what people were doing when my stuff was in Blockbuster, they was going in and they was getting the new Jurassic Park, but they would also, let me get that Brian Hooks movie too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's just do that. I'm not saying to not watch anything, but make sure you carve out space for these folks who are out here making their own films. If you say you want variety, if you say you support the culture, and supporting these films. And also, man, what I'm doing is a crowdfunding for my Left to Bang entertainment. And I would love if you would support and, to your audience that as well, because what it does, because as of now, these youth that I'm teaching for free, everything they get is for free and having them on set, I'm doing that on my own. And so we're doing a crowdfunding because one, I figure, I know that people want to do good and people want to help. And this is a way that you could go to the Kickstarter, give $5 and literally be a part of saving a youth's lives. And it allows them to be on set on my next film and learn the ins and outs, and also supports the virtual school that I do. And it keeps these kids busy, engaged, and entertained, and learning and following, our mentorship instead of following that street mentorship, which we know where that leads them, man. So a handful of things happening, man, but just trying to make sure everything I do in entertainment has a positive social impact attached to it.
Absolutely, man. That's super dope. How do we find that? And I'll put it like in the bio or in the description of this episode for the podcast. But how do we find that crowdfunding link, or where do we go for that?
It's the crowdfunding launches March 9th, and then you could go to Left to Bang Entertainment on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and there will be a link there to the pre-page starting next week, and you can see everything what the program is about. And like I said, if you have $5, you could donate, and and it helps. It goes towards something real, and then it has a real cause and effect that pushes the world forward.
Absolutely, man. Well, B Hooks, appreciate you greatly, man, for taking your time out to join me on my little show that I got going on right here, man. Sure. We definitely, I would be remiss to leave this episode without giving a shout out to my former basketball coach, Derek Jones. Who's a very good he's a very good friend of yours, and he was the one that was able to connect the dots for you to be able to come here on the podcast. And we actually had Coach Jones on this podcast here before as well. And you know, it was cool, man. I think he really enjoyed himself, and he's like, man, you know what? I got to connect you with B Hook. So, you know, here we are making it happen, man. So got to give him a shout out and pay him his homage in regards to being able to put this play together.
Yeah, that's my man. That's my man right there. So, yeah, I'm glad he hooked us up, man. I wish you all the success and everything that you do, and I'm sure we'll talk again, bro.
Absolutely. I'll definitely be having you back on the podcast. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will leave y'all the only way that we know how, and that is to stay woke and go win.